Hey everyone, Paul Riopelle here. Welcome back to the Riopelle Room. Here we are. This is Paul Riopelle. This is the Riopelle Room. I've got a guest here today. His very first time in the Riopelle Room. It's David Jenkins. David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
And there you are. You're on the phone. Obviously, we're not together,
Yes.
but we are.
We're socially distant, but we're emotionally close.
We are. We're so emotionally close. Yes. And thank you for visiting the Riopelle Room today.
Thanks for the invite.
David, how are you today?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
nice afternoon. Got the windows open to the balcony of the building I live in and getting
Good.
some fresh air.
Good. Let's go back.
Okay.
Back.
Sure, let's go back. All right.
How's that?
Ooh, I feel younger
That's
already.
so silly. Yeah. So, David, we met a long time ago. I am, as you say, your oldest friend.
Right. Well,
Yes.
technically you're not my oldest friend either in length of friendship or in actual age.
So it's just a
But
lie when you say that, basically.
it's a good line.
Oh, it's a good
Yeah.
line. Okay. I said lie,
Right.
not line, but yeah, okay.
That's a good line. Well, you and I met, as I recall, in 1977,
Yeah, I couldn't
or
remember if it was
thereabouts.
76 or 77, but go ahead. Yeah.
Early in 77, because your stepsister Angela and her mother Frankie moved in downstairs from where my mom and I lived
Yes.
on 4th Street in Los Angeles, and you came over to visit them. And our mutual friend Stephen Wolfson and I noticed that there was another kid in the neighborhood. I'm not quite sure how we met, probably just out on the sidewalk.
My earliest memories of you are tumbling down that stairway to answer your door. Kaplum, 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 plum, plum. Oh, hi, come on up. Do you recall doing that all constantly?
We
all
lived
the
in
time?
the upstairs apartment and we had the entryway.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
anyway,
it was a great little building.
yeah, it
So
was.
yeah, we discovered that you were into the same stuff that we were. You were into music, and you mentioned not long after we met that your father made records and played shows, and we were fascinated by the fact that we just met somebody that was involved in the thing that we all wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was too long after that we went to meet your parents, but I can't quite remember how that happened. It might have been that maybe they came over
Well,
to where.
do you think we wanted to do music before you actually met Jerry? A little history about David and I. Before we actually got into played in a band together, The Motion is the name of that band. We made movies when we were little kids. We made Superman movies on Super 8
We
film.
made movies.
We went from playing tennis rackets, and then we went to
Very
playing in a band.
enterprising.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, that was the thing, is trying to get to that in between phase of wanting to play music but not quite knowing how. So you start singing along to records, and you start, kind of pretending you're faking it a little bit, get comfortable with the idea of doing it. But pretty early on, we got into the idea of coming up with our own songs. And certainly, once we got to the phase where we were going out into your dad's garage and, making music, that was really the first phase of Jerry's influence
Yeah.
and becoming, directly involved,
Yes.
helping set up the stuff
Exactly.
and showing us the basics. And since we all played drums, it was always a sort of a revolving thing as to who was
Yes.
going to be behind the drum kit. But I do distinctly remember, and of course, for people who don't know, your dad started out as a drummer,
Mm-hmm.
and he sat down behind the kit and showed us how to play a basic, rock and roll beat.
Is that why Stephen played backwards?
That I can't explain.
Inside
but-
joke.
Inside joke. Yeah. But that was definitely a very distinct memory, and it was a great experience to have a little place to go and play music. It's seemingly like whenever we wanted to. I mean, I certainly remember that we would spend all of our weekend time in there, but I even recall going over there once in a while after school or maybe during the week, but definitely on the weekends. And so this would still be like 1978, 79. So we're all still like 11, 12, years old.
Yes.
Pretty powerful memory.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think at the time, when we met, your dad and the guys were just finishing up making the Little Bit at a Time album.
That sounds about right. That would be around.
Because I remember you guys getting the first copies of the finished record back and looking at the cover artwork and seeing all the cool faces on the back. Obviously, for fans of Jerry, are very familiar with the cutout pictures on the back of the Little Bit at a Time LP.
Indeed.
And then I guess it must have been around 81. I think before we went to Phoenix, your dad played a gig down in San Diego at the university.
Is that with Bonnie Raitt or is that Dave Mason?
That was with Dave Mason.
Right.
And then, which I remember that one happening before the gig and was the Bonnie Raitt gig also in San Diego or was that in Santa Barbara?
I believe that was San Diego, but I'm not 100%.
I remember it was at a theater, and I'd have to look it up, but that was really cool because that was her band at the time.
That was the Green Light record, right?
Yeah, that was the band at the time that had Ian McLagan from The Faces in it.
That was great.
And it was really cool, and I remember she was very complimentary.
And wasn't a Ruddle in it, too?
It might have been before Ricky Fittar was the drummer.
No, I think he was.
I can't remember.
I actually think
maybe he was. I just remember the cool thing was I remember her being very complimentary to your dad and to Dave Plen. And Dave was sort of like, made a joke about, it wasn't like he was going to be nervous playing slide guitar in front of her.
Right.
Which he was. But he appreciated the fact that she took the time to see something nice to them before she went out and played. And then I guess we must have, the next thing after those two things is I think we finally were able to take a trip with you and your family and the whole band to Arizona.
Did you go in the motorhome? Is that how we went for that trip?
Yeah, you guys rented a motorhome, and I recall that it was, so this would be the band with Jeff Hickson on drums.
Yep.
And Dan D'Souza on keyboards.
Yep.
And Jeff Hawley on saxophone, and Dave, and I guess John Harris must have been playing bass. And I remember we were in, an RV heading out from LA to Phoenix, and I think that gig was at the Mesa Amphitheater.
That's correct.
Yeah, that was our first Arizona audience, and just like you had told us, it was like we went. I distinctly remember going to a restaurant with the whole band and your family, and them making a big deal when Jerry came in, and I think the owner of the restaurant even picked up the bill and treated the whole band to dinner. And I distinctly remember hearing Jerry's music on the radio when we drove around somewhere there, and it was really amazing. Yeah. And again,
do you remember? My dad gave you and Steven some lyrics. He had a notepad with him, and he said, "Here, do what you want." And you guys went out and sold them to patrons.
Yeah, we I think it might have been Steven's idea. I thought that but we actually did end up selling some handwritten Jerry Riopelle lyrics to fans.
Anyone that's listening, do you have those?
If you have those, one,
make me a copy.
They're legit, and two. Do you still have them? Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see what songs those were.
That's funny. So then I guess around that time,
remember Jerry had a really bad cold at that show. I remember he wasn't feeling.
I remember that too, and also I remember him. That's when I first saw him doing his thing where he made a shaker for his gig. He'd get a can of beer from the liquor store, which he didn't like drinking. He would just open it up, pour it out, cut the can in half, put some corn or some popcorn or some shot or something in it that made it a shaker, and then he would use a gray gaff tape and seal it back up
for everything.
And then they would use those on stage, which I wish I'd kept one of those. I can't imagine it would have lasted all this time, but it would have been interesting to see how it held up.
I seem to remember John Harris having one tied to his mic with a string to his mic stand when he would.
Oh, that could be. Yeah.
In different songs, he would play shakers for a minute.
Yeah, that could be.
So there's a great, and I know you love to tell this story.
Do I?
Yeah, you do.
So.
Well, the one it's regarding this gig and what happened. It's funny in retrospect. It wasn't funny at the time. It's a good lesson.
It wasn't funny at the time.
It's a cautionary tale, I guess you could call it.
Cautionary tale, yeah. So for anybody who was at that...
without mentioning names, David, but go ahead.
Mesa Amphitheater show, we'll just politely call him Jerry's former concert promoter.
Correct.
Seemed to have been in a bit of trouble financially, and even though it was, as I recall...
Let me just say, we are not talking about Danny Zelisko.
We are definitely not talking about Danny Zelisko.
Clear. Okay.
but we're maybe talking about something that led to the future involvement of Danny Zelisko when obviously a change of the guard was needed.
Well, there was some early involvement with Danny too, but that's another
sure,
story.
But we'll just say that this individual shan't work together again, to quote a line from Spinal Tap. I think basically what happened was that he was upside down on the money. The show was a sellout, and when it came time to settle up, apparently there was no bread. And remember a very, in retrospect, darkly humorous moment where the whole band and crew, and even us kids, were all gathered in somebody's hotel room discussing about the reality of there's no money. We got all these hotel rooms to pay for. We need to get the RV and the other car gassed up to get back to LA. How are we going to do this? And it was actually a really good lesson, just kind of the reality of what rock and roll or any live music thing can be. Sometimes you go and you do your job, somebody doesn't do theirs, but you still have to deal with the after effect.
And what was the joke that you heard Dan D'Souza say, or Jeff Hickson, or
I
Jeff
think
Hawley
somebody joked. I think somebody joked about Dan that they'd seen him paying for his dinner with $100 bill.
Let's get him,
and asking if they could break it. So they figured that he would be a good guy to tap into, if they needed to get some extra cash.
Right.
But somehow somebody came up with a credit card and paid the hotel room, and they worked it out. And again, it was just a good lesson. And
I'm sure the late great, absolutely great Michael Dunnigan was, I'm sure, on that
he
trip.
probably came up with some good ideas. I'm sure he also. I think he also figured out a way to work with the hotel manager and to explain the situation. And then I guess it was not long after that the next time Jerry came back and played in the Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff area, he was working with the guy that he worked with the rest of his career, which would be Danny Zelisko.
Yes.
But he really enjoyed his time at home, and he would set up occasional gigs but that he could come back to LA and just kind of be a husband and a father and hang out and work on his other projects. I think that was always, the balance that he enjoyed, and we certainly were the beneficiary of it.
Yep. Do you have a favorite Jerry record? Or I won't make you pick a song right now, but do you have a favorite album by Jerry?
It's tough for me to pick one favorite record. If I could make a triple album of
okay.
Saving Grace.
That's too easy. That's a cop out.
A little bit at a time. In a way, I suppose, weirdly enough, I guess the record that I heard first, because it was brand new, was A Little Bit at a Time. And so that's a special memory. But I think,
see, I was going to say, I thought you were going to say Saving Grace for some reason.
In a lot of ways, I was going to say that Saving Grace, which of course I went back to after getting to know your dad and getting to hear so many of those songs live, we all found copies of those old records, and they were kind of a revelation, mainly because even then, he had changed some of the arrangements and was doing different versions of them live, but it was a great lesson in listening to them and kind of learning how they were made and how he worked with different musicians, different arrangement ideas. So I'd probably say that Saving Grace has a special place for me. And I also know that it's a big, I know we got to do an album night of that years back. And that was really cool because we kind of, your dad was really up for it, and he spent some time playing some songs that he had not played in quite a long time. The thing with Living the Life, I think it's a great kind of sneaky, mellow vibe at the beginning. A low-key way to open up Saving Grace. It has a fabulous rhythm section on it.
Yes.
The amazing Jim Gordon on drums, and the late Wilton Felder, who was a friend of your father's as well, on the bass guitar. And for those of you who don't know, Wilton Felder was a member of a legendary group called the Crusaders, but also did a lot of session work. And he's actually the guy that plays bass on I Want You Back by the Jackson 5. But he plays bass on Living the Life. And, of course, your dad plays Wurlitzer piano, and Dave Plen plays the beautiful electric guitar. And there's a killer background vocal from a woman that your father had worked with way back and always continued to hire, which was Clyde King.
Clyde King, who was also a Raylette and also sang with Bob Dylan.
Raylette and sang with Bob Dylan and Leon Russell and everybody. And she was one of the premier backing vocalist for so many people. But yeah, a huge part of each of their lives was, in the mid '60s, they cut some records together, and that's what led to Jerry getting the attention of Phil Spector, and it certainly helped Clyde out as well. And it was kind of a great moment for both of them.
So yeah, well, let's listen to it. Want to listen to it?
Okay, sure.
So yeah, all those folks are on this record, and it was the opening song to Saving Grace album, and here it is, "Living the Life."
Still an oasis, and believe it or not, by the look on our faces, we were living the life, living the life, we were living the life, we were alive. Oh, Christmas in June, we were lost in the manger. I was playing the man, you were playing the stranger. Got to high noon, you just laughed at the danger. We were living the life, oh, living the life. We were living the life, we were alive. They say someday a man must understand the things he does. Wish that I could tell what it was. Oh, I know what it really was. It really was. Just steaming hot, chasing the sorrow, but we got what we got. Beg, steal, or borrow, and believe it or not, well, there ain't no tomorrow when you're living the life. Oh, living the life, we were living the life. Oh, we were living the life. Oh, living the life. Oh, living the life.
Nice.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's a perfect record right there. It's got a great mood, a great vibe, and great instrumentation, and a really simple, straightforward lyric.
You and my dad had a very good relationship over the years, aside from the music.
Yeah, I mean,
when they moved to Hawaii, you did something really special. I know he loved you for this.
Well, I had the benefit for about a decade of running the mailroom at a talent agency here in Los Angeles, and I might have sent a couple, 300 packages over a decade to your mom and dad.
Well, what I'm talking about specifically is that didn't you send him like the Sunday paper for a while?
Oh yeah, I was a big fan.
Something?
I was a big fan of reading the Sunday Los Angeles Times, the funny paper and the calendar section and the magazine, and I would always save it, and then about once a month I would get a huge oversized envelope and put the month's worth of LA Times, which was very difficult for your folks to get when they lived in Hawaii.
Yes.
And so for I think the whole of their time living there, at least as far as I remember, I would gather it and then just take it to the post office and send it off to them.
Very
and
kind.
They got a kick out
what
of
a
it.
Mensch.
And
what a mensch.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like too about your dad and I would talk about whatever record was out that he was into, and would mention stuff to him or suggest. And this is kind of where it all goes full circle. Your dad was the first person that played me all kinds of music. I mean,
well, that's what I was going to ask you. What do you tell me how you feel he influenced your musical taste, your direction, if any?
The biggest thing is that we already individually were huge Beatles fans, and then began discovering other groups like them. Through reading books or magazines about them, we would find out about other bands. And I think that I do distinctly remember that your dad took us all to see the Who documentary, The Kids Are All Right, at the Cinerama Dome here in Hollywood, I think on opening weekend.
Yeah.
And then amazingly, not long after that, there was an early cable television system out here. Maybe it was nationwide. It was called On TV.
Yep.
And it was sort of like an early like you'd have a box on top of your TV set, and
Off and on. That was
they
the switch.
broadcast
Yes.
a slightly edited version of The Kids Are All Right, which you were smart enough to tape on your VCR.
And I still have it.
And I'm pretty sure that every afternoon after school for at least the next 6 months to a year, we would come over to your house and watch that movie, to the point where we probably tried the patience of both your parents and your
Yes.
sister.
Definitely.
But
Never hoot out.
But I mean, more to the point was just that the music that we were into, sometimes it would be something that your dad would have already known about, of course, having been around, and seeing these groups the first time around, but he would kind of delight at our introduction to it, or to see what we would all respond to as kids.
He saw The Who, the first time he saw The Who was at Monterey Pop.
Right.
He was there as a young artist, producer at A&M and in the parade, I believe, at the time.
Right. He also had the benefit of having seen a lot of this stuff, firsthand. But for us, it was like absorbing it next, I guess we'd call it, certainly next generation at least. But the acts that I do distinctly remember hearing, artists for the first time. I remember that your dad was certainly the first person that played us records by the band.
Yeah.
And I think I recall us all going to see The Last Waltz together in the theater when it came out. And I remember for the first time hearing Van Morrison and Little Feat and Curator and all those kind of classic artists that were making, records at the same time that your dad was making records. Randy Newman, Leon Russell, these are all people that were up your dad's alley musically, that he felt comfortable with. Some of those were people that he had been friends with and worked with in the studio, like Leon Russell, or people that he knew, like Randy Newman, as, a writer and a guy kind of behind the scenes that ended up, becoming an artist as well. And it was just an interesting time to be able to be open to absorbing all that stuff. And then also, contemporary music. Your dad was always keen on things that were happening that were new, that weren't necessarily what you would think he'd be into. I remember he was really impressed by the sound of the first Cars album.
Yep.
And thought it was a really great sounding, new type of rock and roll record. And he was also into Dire Straits, which was maybe a little bit more up his alley musically, but I remember that he was into that. And then also, the other thing that I remember too is that even when it was something that he wasn't necessarily, or that I wouldn't think he'd be into, he would surprise me and he would find something in it that he would enjoy, or, that he would relate to. And then I distinctly remember too, in 1980, I guess it'd be 83, your dad and your mom were both knocked out by the Peter Gabriel record.
He loved,
which is known as Security. It's this fourth album that has Shock the Monkey on it.
Yes.
And it was really something that impressed your dad on a number of levels. And
he was a huge fan of Peter Gabriel. Yeah.
It was a big kind of an ear opener for him at a time where he was starting to embrace, some new technology too. So it was great. And it was also very beneficial to us because he was directly involved in kind of mentoring us and shepherding us along with our attempts at making better recordings. And of course, took us into a studio for the first time when we were all still kids in the summer of 83. So we could make our first real professional demo tape. And that was also a great experience to watch him hands-on in the studio, really producing and helping arrange and helping direct things in a way that he knew that we could do it. He's just there to give us his years of experience and his energy and enthusiasm, but to help his son and his son's friends realize their goal, not to just do the work for you at all, but to help you get to the place where he knew you needed to be. And that's the mark of a good producer. He recognizes what's there.
I want to toot your horn again for a second, David. I want to really give props to David for helping me make this tribute we'd had earlier this year a success, and it really was a success. And I owe it a lot to you, David. I just want to thank you publicly, podcastically. You've been involved with every show. As far as taking care of the stage, I would say the anniversary show in 2005 is when you really started coming to everyone. Is that correct?
I mean, I think I would take trips before and hang out. Sometimes I would just, help out, but really I wasn't doing too much of anything. And
it
then
became
I
an
think
integral part of the
Yeah, I think around that
band,
time
right?
it just started to be, it just started to make more sense to kind of help out with that stuff. And I had more experience certainly by that point. I'd been playing music for a long time and I'd been on the road a bit and I traveled a bit. So I felt more, felt like I could lend a hand. And yeah, I mean, I can't remember exactly when, but 2005 sounds about right. And then, it was
Yeah.
great fun. Your dad did a series of shows for the Arizona Centennial.
Yep.
When those also coincided with kind of a new lineup of the band, both new and old.
Which I hope to get some of those characters on here. Before I get away from this, about the tribute, the LA tribute that we did, kind of a warm up to the Scottsdale one. But
Right.
but I'd like you to talk a little bit about your thing that you're involved in, that tribute was a part of as well, which was the Wild Honey stuff, and that's a big deal. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that.
Well, in the 90s and up till 2003, we did fundraisers for all kinds of different amazing organizations, for Sweet Relief and Habitat for Humanity and Music Cares, Grammy Music in the Schools program, Handgun Control. We would sort of pick different themes. The reason that we aligned ourselves in 2013 when we returned with an organization then called the Autism Think Tank of New Jersey is that they had been recommended to my partner Paul as a source of assistance for his son Jake, who's highly autistic, and they have become our partner in the Wild Honey events we've done since 2013. They are a fabulous organization. They do a lot of non-traditional and sort of forward-thinking therapies, some involving music therapy, and do sort of an above and beyond approach. We were also able to, I think, bring a new audience, mostly a new audience out here in Los Angeles, to Jerry's music through the the warm-up show that we did at a club here called Molly Malone,
Right.
where some of the same people that performed in Arizona were involved. But we also had a chance to bring in some different singers and some people that kind of knew about Jerry through me or through you, but didn't have a chance ever to work with him. So we were able to have Chris Price and also able to have a great moment with our friend Steve Stanley, who performed an old song of Jerry's called Sunshine Girl with Murray McLeod from his old band, The Parade. And again, it was like a nice moment that we were able to make happen. Your mother was gracious enough to come out, and it was a tough night for her emotionally, I think, but she really loved seeing all these people, some of whom she had never met and did not know at all, but saw how they connected with the music. And that was really the whole point, was to show a new audience, here's something that you're going to love, you just don't know it.
And one of my things with it was I really wanted to have people that didn't necessarily know the music well or hadn't been that exposed to it, other than a little bit, more hearing from you or me or someone else in the band, and having them take on these songs and really loving it.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of it, is that.
And by the way, we should mention his last official performance was the Wild Honey band tribute.
That's true. Yeah. And that was, it was a great moment, and we were really, proud to have him. But I think one of the things that's also great is that, there are a lot of lesser known gems in your dad's catalog that, we were able to introduce some of those in the set list for both shows, the LA and the Scottsdale show.
And what's the song you want?
Oh, well, of course, I'm a big booster of Little Bit at a Time, which I understand recently had a lot of action on the Riopelle Facebook page.
It sure did. It got a lot of action.
I wasn't going to write.
You may be onto something there, David.
I wasn't going to write anything to say I told you so, but I told you so.
Precious time.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Dave, we're going to have to wind down, but I want to thank
Well,
you.
thank you for having me. There was also, something I wanted to mention that, a real important lesson that I learned from listening to your father's music and from listening to music that he would play us and seeing how he would react to things is learning how to keep things moving forward and to keep certain things in mind when you're performing, when you're get a chance to be in the studio. And one of the nice things was we were able to introduce your dad to, some folks out here that helped him do some recording a couple years ago that he had such a good time. I think he had kind of not given up on the idea of making any more music, but just didn't really feel particularly motivated to go through the effort to make an entire new album. But I think the combination of meeting a couple of new musicians that were so into his music that had just gotten exposed to it, and also working in a studio environment that was really quick and easy and high quality sounds and not any kind of major drama. It just, it was a really nice moment to see him get to experience that and kind of watch his skill set still be intact in terms of getting directly to the heart of the matter of working on a particular track or going for a particular mood in a piece of music. He always knew how to cut right through and make something happen. And, he had a lot of experience that he brought in helping other people make music before he started doing his own thing under his own name. A solid decade of every job you could do in the music business, literally everything you could do, from being a musician out on the road to a side guy to, a producer, arranger, A&R guy, all of it. So he got to the point where he just wanted to do his own thing. And in a way, I'm kind of glad he waited until he was a little bit older, because he was able to make music in a way that he probably wouldn't have been, a decade earlier. He kind of came along as a solo artist kind of at the right time for what he was doing.
David, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for visiting the Riopelle room. We'll see you next time. Bye, folks.